India, a motley crowd of several communities and social groups. Many are disadvantaged. Most are deprived of amenities as basic as sanitation facilities. That is why the Water Supply and Sanitation Collaborative Council WSSCC joined hands with the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance Jiva and the Freshwater Action Network South Asia to organize the Leave No One Behind consultations on SDG 6 in December 2019 in Rishikesh. The consultations followed a formal process to bring out suggestions for the government for making inclusive policies. Involving those furthest behind in planning is necessary to formulate inclusive sanitation policies that meet the specific needs of these groups. India has undertaken the greatest collective behavior change campaign and toilet building exercise in human history. As a result, toilet penetration has gone up dramatically. The sanitation coverage in the rural areas of the country has increased to 98.6% in 2019 as opposed to over 38% on 2nd October 2014. This means that more than 100 million toilets were built in just the last 5 years. On 2nd October 2019, on the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi, the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced that India had achieved the first key milestone. The ODF Plus mission is the second stage of the Swachh Bharat mission and will now focus on including those left behind till now. To achieve this goal, it is crucial to involve every segment of society, particularly those who are left behind and often excluded from basic services. Equal dignity and inclusion were Gandhi's goals. They are also the goals of Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development. The Sustainable Development Goals and SDG 6 ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. The summit was held at Parmarth Niketan Rishikesh on the banks of the Holy Ganga from 16th to 18th December 2019. 142 women and men coming from 17 states and representing 14 particularly vulnerable communities were invited and consulted to assess the extent to which the Swachh Bharat mission enhanced their access to adequate wash services and identify next steps to leave no one behind in the ODF Plus stage of the Swachh Bharat mission. The findings and recommendations of the consultations will be shared with the government for the national report that India will present at the United Nations High-Level Political Forum in New York in July 2020. This will be a part of the voluntary national review process, which tracks progress states accomplish to realize the SDGs for all.
Water Supply and Sanitation Collaborative Council along with Jiva and FANSA, they had a consultation meeting on Swachh Bharat mission towards achieving SDG 6 in India. This is a part of the Voluntary National Review 2020 which India is taking. We presume that the recommendation of the workshop will be helpful to us in achieving the SDG 6 and maintaining the open defecation free status in the country.
जो SBM में अभी हमने अचीव किया है वो देखिए उनके जो पिलर्स थे सक्सेस के वो थे बिहेवियर चेंज और वो डिफरेंट तरह से बिहेवियर चेंज आया। जैसे हमने आईसी एक्टिविटीज़ करवाई, लोगों की निगरानी समिति रखी गई, कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग करी गई। तो प्रपोजल है हमारा ODA प्लस में, उसमें ये फोकस दिया गया है कि आईसी के ऊपर हम पूरा फोकस करेंगे और कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग करेंगे जिसमें ट्रेनिंग्स दी जाएंगी सरपंच को, और जो वहाँ के अदर फंक्शनरीज होंगे उनको भी हम ट्रेनिंग देंगे।
I want to commend the Government of India for its partnership with civil society organizations with support of the United Nations this year in its preparation of the VNR 2020. This year is a special VNR for the government and for the people of this country because it puts a special emphasis on marginalized communities and those who have been left behind. I'm confident that these consultations will bring to the fore critical issues that are needed to accelerate progress towards the SDGs and towards the full realization of Agenda 2030.
As we saw earlier today with the event with multi-faith leaders, they have a huge power to bring about change in society. We talk about societal engagement. They have the power to talk to their communities, their congregations, which make up, hundreds and thousands and millions of people across the country, to take the messages. A lot of what we're talking about here is around behavior change in our practices, in our homes, in our lives. It's also about changing social norms.
Water Supply and Sanitation Collaborative Council, a body of the UN, has done an extremely good job by organizing a discussion, a conference at Rishikesh. A lot of takeaways from the meeting we think would help us generate formulations for policy, for interjections in implementation.
6 major faith groups, Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains and Christians participated, believing that faith is an important tool for promoting a more inclusive and just society.
मानव एक समान, सबके भीतर है भगवान। इस लीव नो वन बिहाइंड तो बाद में है, लीव नो वन बिहाइंड। अपने जीवन में उस वन को पकड़ लीजिए तो आपने सबको पकड़ लिया, सबको जोड़ दिया, क्योंकि फिर आप किसी और को नहीं देखते हैं, ना ट्रांसजेंडर को देखते हैं, ना फिर आप सेक्स वर्कर को देखते हैं, ना फिर आप गरीब को देखते हैं, ना आप आदिवासी को देखते हैं, ना फिर आप मुसलमान को देखते हैं।
बदल सकता है, जज्बात बदल सकते हैं, दौरे मौजूद की दिन रात बदल सकते हैं। यारो तुम बदलो तो पूरे दुनिया बदल सकते हैं।
For me, issues are very micro and very specific, that the documentation doesn't include anywhere LGBTI community, nowhere the sexual minority is mentioned. There should be a proper head count of communities where we want to give services.
The first day saw the orientations of rapporteurs of different groups. On the second day, experienced facilitators and rapporteurs facilitated the consultations of the various groups. Following UN guidelines, the consultation process included need gap analysis and supports needed for each group.
तो ये जो 14 ग्रुप आइडेंटिफाई हुए वो बहुत सोच समझ के हुए कि ये वो ग्रुप हैं जो मार्जिनलाइज्ड हैं, जो पिछड़े हैं, जहाँ तक शायद सरकार की नज़र नहीं पहुँची है, या जिनको स्पेशल नीड की ज़रूरत है। जैसे घर में एल्डरली कोई आदमी है, पैर में दर्द कर रहा है, आपने स्क्वाटिंग प्लेट उसका बना दिया तो वो तो नहीं कर पाएगा, उसके लिए तो कमोड चाहिए। तो थोड़ा थोड़ा क्या क्या किसके किसके लिए ज़रूरतें हैं उसको आइडेंटिफाई करें। देखिए रिकमेंडेशन की लंबी लिस्ट हमारे पास आपकी आ गई है।
In terms of translating the principle into action, essentially requires first giving the opportunity to the people who are actually excluded, who have been left behind. This consultation workshop of 3 days was a great successful event in terms of providing such kind of opportunity for all the people from the actual ground.
Our goal here is to really talk to them and find out from them what the situation is and after the Swachh Bharat mission's achievements, and what can be done more by the government and by the rest of society in order to enable them to fully exercise their right to water and sanitation and hygiene.
From everybody's mind, that discrimination must go. That sense of us versus them must go. But ये इतनी भी जरूरी है कि आपके मन से भी दूर हो जाए। जब तक आपके मन में होगा कि हम अलग हैं, तो फिर ये we will just be able to solve on a symptom level. This problem will not actually be rooted out.
On the third day, the group's rapporteurs presented the outcomes. The key messages of the groups were: 1. Equity and inclusion are reflected in the SBM incentives for construction of household toilets for the poor. But the most vulnerable within the poor were not specifically targeted. They were not consulted, so their specific needs were not considered. Disaggregated data are needed to track progress, specifically for women, girls, and the variety of groups in vulnerable situations. Those excluded from basic water, sanitation, and hygiene services are individuals lacking social and legal status, power, and capacity for asserting their rights. Unless families, communities, and the state take a proactive role in supporting their inclusion and participation, their special needs will remain neglected. Sanitation and hygiene are not just the responsibility of the Ministry of Jal Shakti. Community organizations, NGOs, and government departments working for the rights and welfare of the marginalized and vulnerable communities should also actively pursue sanitation and hygiene improvement in their initiatives. Marginalized and vulnerable groups should be systematically consulted on their specific sanitation and hygiene needs in ODF Plus phase implementation. Policies and funds should ensure that they can send well-prepared representatives to participate in planning, implementation, and monitoring of sanitation and hygiene programs at state, district, city, block, and village levels.
जब भी सरकार की तरफ से कोई योजना आती है, कोई भी वो काम करना चाहते हैं, तो वो हम लोगों को सेक्स वर्कर को भी इन्वॉल्व करें.
We have to understand like basic needs of the LGBT community, and the second point is like we need to understand like the services if provided by the government, is that services as appropriate according to the documents and not.
गोटे पुओ जेमती जाउची गोटे पुरुष टॉयलेट, गोटे झियो जेमती जाउची गोटे लेडीज टॉयलेट. मु भी सेमती चाहूँ जे मो पई भी गोटे सेपरेट टॉयलेट हो, बट ये हो जाउची गोटे डिस्क्रिमिनेशन. तो आमे चाहूँ सब बेले गोटे झियो जेमती सामान, पुओ जेमती सामान, आमे भी सेमती सब बेले सामान हेबा पे. सेति आमे चाहूँ आमर भी गोटे साइनेज लागू एमती कि ट्रांस फीमेल और ट्रांस मेल.
The Ministry of Jal Shakti, Sulabh International, the National Human Rights Commission of India, and other national and international institutions also participated in a lively dialogue with groups on the last day, when the various groups presented their findings and recommendations. Participants also focused on the need to assure that all women and girls can adequately manage their menstrual hygiene. An MHM lab was set up for raising awareness. Volunteers from different parts of the country came together to discuss awareness raising activities on the ground level. The Leave No One Behind Summit happened in a friendly atmosphere where state officials, technical experts, religious leaders, and members of the disadvantaged groups in society came together regardless of any difference, ate together, and prolonged the conversation. This harmony was celebrated with several cultural events.
For any reason.
As India engages in the ODF Plus mission, all segments of society must join hands to make the chain stronger, because one weak link can fragilize the whole chain.
सबके हाथ को पकड़ लेंगे. हम है समाधान, हम है साथ ही साथ, हम एक हैं.